Yeah, it goes from left ear to right ear. Well, but when I walk up, when I come around and I start to move, I could touch my head and I could touch my brain because there was nothing there to protect my brain. So, yeah, like I said, it's part of me now, metalhead. My mates call me Robocop. Oh.
My experiences in the military affected my mind quite badly and affected how I thought about things and affected my ability to cope with stress and things like that, and not in a positive way.
Nobody who comes out of the army comes out fine. Everybody has some level of sort of mental health issue. Whether they know it or not, whether it ever bubbles to the surface or not, everybody has them.
The army became his norm. So he'd kind of say, having things shot at me, that's my norm. That's what I'm used to. Being in that environment is what I'm used to. He said, actually, the environment that I'm not used to is being in the family.
I was probably quite difficult, it made me quite a difficult person to live with at times. Most of the time. Not all the time.
My mental health struggles are a direct consequence of my military service.
So when people do ask for help, what I do say to practitioners is that is such a hard moment for people. So when they ask for help, they really, really do need it.
Am I being detained or am I free to go? And it was about that whole thing. It was an interpretation of, I've had it a couple of times in my life where once with a suicide attempt, in fact, I think on 2 occasions, I was detained under the Mental Health Act. And it's almost like a criminalisation of having a mental health problem. The hospitals don't deal with you, so you're taken to the local police cell. Well, my name's Lenny, and I served for just over 12 years in the British Army. I served in Germany for the great majority of that time, but with postings to the UK, spent some time in Canada, things like that. I joined at the age of 17 and left when I was 31, and now I'm 56, but during that time there were traumas and events that occurred during my military career that went on to affect the rest of my life, up until the present day, really.
Dave as a person was a bit nutty. He was very committed, very loyal, had a really good sense of humour. He liked a bit of banter, but sometimes it was a little bit too close to the bone. A lot of people were like, ooh, I don't know if I'd say that to that person. He loved the military because that became his family, because it replaced the childhood thing that he didn't really have. And he kind of felt that by joining the military, it would give people to go, look at him and go, oh, look, he's made something himself. Look who he is. He's like an upstanding member of the community. He felt it brought respect to him, really. But he was in Northern Ireland, he was in Bosnia, he was in Iraq 1 and 2, he went to Afghanistan. You know, every single major conflict he was involved in. He took pride in that because he kind of like, when it came to Afghan, he volunteered. I mean, who volunteers to go to Afghan? But he said to me, but it's the only one I haven't been to. And the army became his norm.
Well, my mum and dad were both in the military. My dad was in the Royal Signals, which is why I went on to join. And I don't know, just always through school, it's just always, that's what I always thought that I was gonna do. Like I going to join the army because, you know, they talked it up real good. Like, in the attic was like boxes with my dad's old uniform and, you know, the pictures and stuff like that, and you go, wow, that's cool. And then you watch programs on TV and everything's glorified and you go, oh yeah, yes, good idea. So that's the earliest memory of wanting to do a job was I wanted to be in the army.
I put my uniform on for this country the 10th of September 2001, a day before 9/11. I would have been in 3rd Battalion Parachute Regiment, so I went to Colchester. And I served in Afghanistan 2006, 2007 and 2005. So I've done my tours. I've also worked with Special Forces and I've got PTSD due to what I've seen and what I've done. Because I'm just getting help now from it from 2007. They put me on some quetiapine tablets, which is antipsychotic drugs to make me sleep. Because if I don't sleep because I've got nightmares and I wake up shouting and sweating. And my ex-partner, I hit her in the face when I was asleep because what was going on in my brain. I can't change my brain, but would like more help for those who are suffering from it.
Where do we want to go? Do we want to start at one end? You want to start along here? Yeah, so this is a photograph here of my squadron in Rangers, on Rangers, and that's me there, basically, 3rd from left. There was a young lad. He'd been in the army a few years before me, but he sort of really took me under his wing, really, when I joined, and he always made sure that I was okay and I was settling in all right, and he gave me some vinyl, gave us a few records, things like that. He would always have a conversation with me. He would always chat about the whole sort of settling in process. Anyway, it wasn't that long after all that really that we went on the Rangers. And there was one night where we parked the vehicles up after firing, and we then, the next morning when we got up, he wasn't there. Nobody could find him, nobody knew where he was. And then another friend of mine noticed that one of the vehicles had been shut from the inside, so he went in through the driver's hatch, and then he could see that the guy had dismounted a machine gun. He'd put a belt of machine gun rounds in it, and then he'd committed suicide with a gun. After the event, the body was removed from the vehicle, and me and I think it might have been 2 or 3 other guys were assigned to sort of cleaning the inside of the tank out. And like I said, I was still young at that point. I think I had turned 18 by that point, but I think that's still quite a young age, really, for that sort of experience. And afterwards, we were given a sort of I think it was probably a crate of Carlsberg or something like that. Given a crate of beer and told to go and get drunk, and then they didn't want to hear any more about it.
It was a really stressful time leaving because like my marriage had fallen apart. I wasn't really getting any help from the army, like mental health wise, or much support in that way. And I don't know, it was just all a bit of a shock leaving the army. And I struggled massively with my mental health when I first came out of the army. That was in 2018.
If you're living with someone with a mental health condition, life isn't easy. You become a carer and you are walking on eggshells a little bit, because when you become aware that something triggers someone, you deliberately don't do those things. So you don't create loud noises, or you don't deliberately say some things that you know are going to create a reaction. So when he was really bad, he was really hard to be around. He was probably quite loud. He could shout really loudly. Obviously, been in the army. He could be just really difficult to talk to. Very argumentative, very tetchy, very everything annoyed him when he was in that kind of mind frame. And I mean, it came to just before he ended his life, he did smash the house up. So he smashed everything because he couldn't find. So he had a coping mechanism, which was to wear earpods and listen to music, because then that drowned out everything that was outside and thoughts in his head at the same time. And he lost one of his earpods, couldn't find it. So the reaction to that was, I'm going to smash the house up, which is a very extreme reaction. And it ended up with him not only smashing the house up, it ended up with him barricading himself in the attic. We had police negotiators here trying to get him down because he was saying that he was going to take his life. We had police officers in every single room. And then myself and the girls had to be removed from the house for our own safety. So, yeah, it did get towards the end of his life, it got more volatile.
It is always tough talking about it. And so I was home. I had my kids that weekend. They were downstairs, and I just went upstairs, ran a bath, and got a razor blade. And my girlfriend had just come up to see what I was doing, because my kids were there. Why would I have just gone upstairs and ran a bath, kind of thing? And she sort of caught me essentially trying to kill myself. And she immediately took the razor blade out of my hand, pretty much dragged me out of the bath, threw a towel around me, and was like, come on, we just need to go for a walk, get out of the house. And we went out and we took the kids to the cinema. And she sat in the cinema and with my kids and her, and it was definitely one of the sort of lowest points, like mental health wise. Not one of, it was the lowest point mental health wise of my life.
I lost my skull in 2007 when my mate was killed in Afghanistan. I went drinking alcohol all day across the road and smashed my head open on a curb. You might be able to see the scar. I just drunk myself to oblivion, and I didn't realise. I crossed the road and I collapsed and smashed my head open on a curb. That's all I can remember. I was in a coma for 8 weeks, and I'm lucky to be here now speaking to you. So, in a way, I'm sad it happened to me, but in another way I'm happy it's happened to me, because I could be dead in another country and I wouldn't have a little boy. So it swings and roundabouts, it happens for a reason.
I thought he'd end up being sectioned, because like I said previously, I knew that sectioning worked. I've seen the difference. I knew that he'd come to that stage that sectioning was what he needed. He was already under mental health crisis team. At this time, when he smashed the house up, he was under the crisis team. He'd been for a psychiatrist appointment that day. You know, it was like they're going to put all this together and they're going to go, wow, you know, we really need to help this family. But it kind of went under the radar. Instead of having that incident and then more resources are put in and more people are going, right, we really need to put him somewhere safe away from the family so that we can help him, we can give him some treatments, make sure the family are safe. Instead of doing that, what they did instead was kind of go, well, this is this incident and this is it's domestic abuse, rather than, yeah, it happens to be mentally ill, but that doesn't excuse what happened. So they put like a grenade in the middle of our family, really, through not supporting us and seeing it for what it actually was. It was like a consequence of mental health. It wasn't a consequence of anything else.
This is a poem called It's Not About You. And don't cause no fuss and don't talk back. You're sent on your way with a stab in the back. Deservingly injured, got a house, we'll fill it. Mental and homeless, a few quid's the limit. And what is the cost of a soldier's damaged mind? The cost of your white goods, the cheapest they'll find. And an attitude to mental health that comes from the top. Amputees on the front rank, the income can't drop. And you talk to me about paradigm shift, you're slow to change like continental drift, and you'll say what we want. If you're not, you're excluded. The public can't hear that they're being deluded. And if it's exciting, they'll listen to your story, just leave out the death, they just want the glory.
His son joined up, right, and we got on well, and I still
You can come down here feeling, and you sit here for half an hour with these guys, and you're going out, and your ribs are aching, you're laughing. It's just the banter we have with each other.
You miss that once you're out. You do miss that because I can't do that in my workplace. I wouldn't last more than 10 minutes.
I said sarcasm is the lowest form of wit. I said, and if wit was shit, it'd be constipated.
My name's Alan Austin. I'm the chairman of the Five Towns Veteran Support Hub. Our Breakfast Club was created for veterans who want to help other veterans.
A lot of civilian life doesn't understand what it is to be in the services, and certainly doesn't understand the problems of people who are leaving the services and coming back to civilian life.
But without the breakfast clubs, they've got no reason to get up, get work motivated.
Well, about 18 months, 2 years ago, I started really struggling and I got diagnosed with PTSD. So it's getting there with medication and stuff like that. But yeah, it's coming here, talking to people, what I know and all that helps out. So you can't get the same camaraderie with civvies as what you do with these lot. Even if we just come in and take mickey out of each other, it's just part of it and it gets you through. I mean, I have good days and bad days. And I mean, when I am having a bad day, that's when I feel really feel that these guys support me all the way through it, as well as Michelle, who's my wife, she supports me all the way through it as well.
So my name's Nick Wood. I'm the Armed Forces Uniform Services Manager here at York St John. I spend a lot of my time delivering the military human, understanding military culture and transition CPD training, and that's delivered to a lot of NHS staff who provide services for veterans and families, to local authorities, criminal justice system, who are working with veterans criminal justice system, and a wide range of community support services. Why do people say you don't understand me? Where does that come from? Where does that begin? What does that actually mean? And if we understand that, how can we help people maybe even understand themselves better and actually engage with some services that are there, like the NHS Veterans Mental Health Services, which is a fantastic service. So what I did was I literally went back to the beginning. So the military human it's a person-centred approach from a new recruit, looking why people join the military, what are their reasons for that, because everybody's got their own reasons. What I realised was actually the focus of the military has been historically to think if someone's got a job and somewhere to live when they leave the military, that is a successful transition. And I think that is critical to transition. You know, you need a job, you need somewhere to live, of course. But I think what I recognised then was in the military you're expected to not only physically invest yourself in the whole process and the whole environment, you're expected to emotionally invest yourself in it. Emotionally invest in the people around you that you view as family. So what I started doing was thinking, okay, so how is the word family defined in the military? And how is it defined as a human being? And actually when you look at it, it's defined in exactly the same way because human beings join the military. So for some people, if they join the military and they might have come from a difficult background, in the military they find a sense of family. So does that mean when they leave the military, there's going to be loss around feelings of family again, because maybe they feel as if they've lost a family again. So I think for me it was about thinking about that adjustment experience and then linking it back to why people join in the first place, that creation of identity, and that investment, that emotional investment.
None of us are clinically trained. Most of us are ex-squaddies. But we can signpost. But the thing to remember is the camaraderie. That's what we predominantly are there for. But we also know, there's an old saying, I know a man that can. And we're experts with a man that can. If you came in to see us and you were having housing problems, I'd have a telephone number and a sheet. That's who to contact. Like, one of your prime examples is DWP, working pensions. When you go to the Dole office now, you stand in front of a big glass thing with two burly bouncers. It's very intimidating, especially for a man or a woman, and we've dealt with women with PTSD, to walk, make contact. He'll do without his benefits rather than walk through that door.
The 4 pillars of the military are trust, loyalty, selfless commitment and leadership. You're told that it's part of the language that you absorb to create that sense of identity. As a human being, we invest a lot of ourselves into the word trust. We don't necessarily give trust away easily. But in the military, you have to trust people with your life. You have to completely give yourself. Of course, when people look outwards into maybe civilian life, they might think to themselves, well, they've not experienced that same level of trust in them same circumstances. So can I trust that person in the same way? And I think that's the question really. I think it's a case of, can I trust this person because they haven't been on the same journey as me?
I hate being a civilian because there's no honour here. There's no leadership. There's no honour, no friendship, and no love. Do you know what I mean? Between friends. So, I mean, my civilian friends, I couldn't count on them. That's what I love about being ex-military. My friends are still my friends. So, don't matter what we've been through, we're friends, and we can talk about the bad times to each other. Can't talk to a doctor, can't talk to a social worker because they've never been there. They're only reading books, so that's all they do.
If we're talking about suicide prevention, the missing voice in all this has been lived experience, which blows my mind. Like, why would you not talk to the people affected by it and find out, well, what is the true story? What happened? And what was the lead up? And where did you see the gaps? Because you've lived through it, so you know where all of this was. Why would you not talk to those people? It blows my mind that people haven't. And so I came up with, so our support group's called For the Fallen. I turned that into a community interest company a year later. And that's now been operational for 3 years. And now we are part of a consortium of universities and charities who, for the first time ever, are using the lived experience, the voices of those who have been left behind to find out what went wrong.
Dwell Time is, it started off as a mental health arts publication, but has expanded to be more than that. It's like a programme of workshops. We've got a venue here in Huddersfield. We're artists that work independently as artists, writers, as well as this project. We work in partnership with various different organisations and individuals as well.
I think what's important for me is, when I started to go through all this, I knew almost straight away that I wanted to use my negative experiences to try and have a positive impact on other people.
We need to value people with lived experience more, not as a one knows more than the other, because nobody knows more than the other, but they have an expertise that people who have not been affected by it or who have been stuck in a policymaker's office do not have. So imagine if the two come together how much of a better system we could create together. You know, it would actually be a system that worked for people and would prevent suicide.
Asking for help sort of goes against the grain of, you know, you're supposed to be the best, you're supposed to be able to cope, you've been able to look after yourself, and you're not coping, but you've got to get through this. So when people do ask for help, what I do say to practitioners is, that is such a hard moment for people. So when they ask for help, they really, really do need it.
But in terms of sort of counselling, they just give me sort of a pamphlet for the local mental health guys. It wasn't through, I don't think it's through the NHS, I think it was some charity or something, I'm not sure what it was called, I can't remember. But they said, oh yeah, ring these people and talk to them. I was just like, it was hard enough just bringing myself to tell you, you know, and then now you want me to ring up a stranger and go, oh, hi stranger, yeah, I tried to kill myself in the bath 2 weeks ago, can you help me? Sort of thing. It's a bit, it's a bit much. It was just a bit much, and I didn't end up ringing the number, and I never really reached out for help at all. There wasn't anything in reference to me being in the military or anything like that. There was no like Operation Courage or whatever it's called.
I've never heard of Operation Courage until you've just mentioned it to me, Jeff. Nobody's told me about it. No, nobody from NHS has told me about it. My mental health service hasn't told me about it. So do you know what I mean? That needs to be put, they need to broadcast that more. It's called Eden Forest Woods, and it's people who've got mental health problems and they've had abuse done to them, and we all meet down here on a Friday, and we have a coffee. We even cook food over a campfire we've made, and we've got a kitchen made, we've got a roundhouse made with all food in it, apart from squirrels nick it, little buggers. and I love being down here. It's great. I mean, we have children down here who's lost parents. We even have nurses down, and on Tuesday we had females who had been domestic abuse against them and raped, and they loved it down here. They're going to come back, and the next time they're going to come fishing. So we help each other down here. Even people we don't know, we help. So this is a life saviour to me and my friends up there. We all say it. Well, the only help I've had recently is talking to a psychologist and my social worker, but I prefer this help, because I'm out with my friends and they know what I've been through, and they've been through something similar, do you know what I mean? So I like being outside. That's why I go fishing, I play rugby. If I could live outside, I'd live outside, because it's beautiful. So, yeah.
Anger actually hasn't been the core emotion. It's actually been sadness. But because anger's the easy one to access, because as a military person you can access something like that because it's a response, it's actually thinking what's behind the anger.
I don't regret my time in the military. I made some of the best friends that I've ever had, and had some fantastic experiences in with the sort of the negative ones. And it's something I've always said, and many of my friends will say the same, is that we would do it all again. We just wish that we were treated better afterwards.
I went through trauma therapy, and that's what I would say to anyone who's been bereaved by suicide. Go to trauma therapy, work through your stuff. Talking works, therapy works. You don't think it does at the time, but afterwards your mind changes, the way you think changes. You don't even notice it's happening. And then you become more peaceful, and that's all everyone needs to be, is just more. You've got to accept what's happened, because you can't do it, it's done. So you've got to accept it, and you've got to become more peaceful with life.
I just take every day, a day at a time, and I just love it every day. Like I meet once today with my friends who've got mental health problems as well, and we get on with it. It's just life, we've got to get on with it. That's me finished, my friend.